I want to tell you a story about why stakeholder management is so critical to success in product. This book has been coming for a long time. Back in the pre-dot-com days, I had a product. It was a new product. It was my first product as an official product manager, and I was convinced that it was brilliant. It was going to be the first online letter shop where you could print, mail merge, and mail letters to people all online in the interface that I had created. It was called Letter Builder, and I was sure that it was going to propel my tiny startup company into the internet of the future, that we were going to grow like crazy, that we were going to achieve all our goals, we were going to go IPO, and it was going to be awesome for everyone involved. Let me tell you why that product, Letter Builder, never became famous and why it was a doomed effort from the start. I had done my customer research. I understood the problem. I understood the customer. I understood their willingness to pay. I had a solution that I had developed and tested with them, and everything seemed good for product market fit. When we were a couple of weeks before launch, I went and I had a conversation with the VP of marketing. And I was all excited to tell her about the launch and to ask for her support in promotion. When before I could do that, she asked me what my marketing plan was. I was a little confused because I thought that was her job. So I threw out a few ideas, and she quickly made it clear to me that the marketing budget for the year was pretty much all set in promoting and generating leads for our current money-making product, and that she had no interest in changing any of that. My product was interesting, she said, but her goals were clear and my product was not included in them. That was bad. It got worse. I went from there to a conversation with sales, and they very quickly told me that the comp plan and the sales plan was all set for the year. Everything was locked, and it was not at all focused on my little interesting but unproduct. I stumbled out of that meeting into a lunch that the president and the CEO of my company had put together to celebrate the impending launch of my new product. In the car on the way to lunch, the CEO asked me, "Bruce, what are your expectations for your new product?" It was a very quiet lunch. Now, what went wrong? I had product market fit, but I did not have product company fit. I hadn't gone and talked with sales or marketing or finance or anybody else about what the criteria were for success, about the fit with their goals and the strategy for the company. I might have had product market fit, but there was no way that we were going to bring this to market without the help of sales and marketing. So that product never went anywhere. And I learned that lesson and I carried it all through my career, that your perfect strategy, your fantastic understanding of customers is only one part of success in product. The product is a team effort, a cross-functional team effort, and you've got to get the buy-in and participation and contribution of stakeholders from around the business, not just your product squad, if you want your product to be successful. Stakeholder management is not about keeping everybody happy. It's not about collecting requests from everywhere and then dribbling out a little bit for everybody on your list. It isn't about design by committee either, where again, everything falls down to the medium, mediocre sort of answer. It is about making sure everybody has a chance to have input, feels heard and validated. You get all the best information and opinion and brains on a particular problem. And it is then about driving some sort of alignment. In the end, I do think that we as product people own certain strategic decisions about where the product is going, but we also have the obligation to consult with our stakeholders because they may have some insights that we don't have. And we also need, in the end, if we want our products to be successful, to get aligned with those stakeholders. It's no good developing a product that isn't something your sales team can sell, isn't something your marketing team knows how to communicate about, and isn't something that's consistent with what your company and finance objectives are for the next few years in terms of growth or margin. I think it's a leadership role. It isn't about seeking consensus. It's about molding consensus. It's about making sure that people feel heard, but then crafting a compelling vision of where, based on everything you've learned, we could take this, and getting everybody to rally behind you and behind those that shared vision and those shared goals. Everybody complains about politics, especially in larger organizations. It feels like there's something dirty about that, and it feels like you're always dealing with hidden agendas and backstabbing, and politics just sounds so awful. But it is important that you get to some sort of cooperative baseline, some sort of alignment with all of your stakeholders. And I don't think you need to somehow become a master political strategist in order to just build those relationships, in order to be a genuine person, share your point of view, and expect the same from others around the organization. I think you can set the tone with those people of, hey, we're working together. We all have the same goals in the end. We all want success for the customer, for the company, and a rising tide will float all boats. So let's work together. That's not politics. That's being a human being. That's connecting with people on that human level. And it makes everything so much easier when you're doing it as a team of people who are connected. I'll give you my best hint for establishing those human connections. Eat something or drink something together. Think about a meeting. A meeting is formal. It has an agenda. You're all around a table or you're on Zoom, and it's very to the point, and it's very impersonal. It's hard to sometimes read people's body language or understand exactly what their point of view is and where they're coming from when it's all so formal. But if you're sitting down over lunch or a cup of coffee or a beer after work, then it creates an informal atmosphere. It creates a leveling of hierarchies, a lowering of defenses, a more relaxed situation. You can more easily talk about personal stuff, your kids, your pets, the game last weekend, your plans for summer vacation. And that can easily translate into your hopes for the future, for the company, for your department, for your product, for yourself. And that can make a human connection that then makes, when you do talk about what about this objective, what about this feature, what about this initiative, it makes it so much easier because you feel like you're talking to a human being that you know, and they feel the same. And there's a certain level of genuineness and trust there that just makes it easier to be honest. And to be honest even when you disagree, and to discuss that disagreement not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity to understand each other even better and discover where you overlap and where you don't and why. That's where the magic of alignment really comes in. My favorite stakeholder management technique for making a connection with someone and having a deep and meaningful enough conversation that you can come to decisions together, even difficult ones, is called mirroring. Mirroring is when you make an effort to reflect what you are hearing and seeing from the other person. It can be literally mirroring them in the sense of taking their stance, their posture. Maybe if they're crossing their arms in being thoughtful or even being skeptical, you can do the same. Maybe if they're more open, you can face them and be open as well. If they, use fancy vocabulary or jargon of their particular discipline, take a moment to try to understand and use the same wording that they use, because these things will tend to make them more comfortable with you. We all have what's called the affinity bias, where we're just more comfortable with people who we perceive to be similar to us. So if you're willing to talk about the game of tennis that they watched over the past weekend, even if you're not really into tennis, even just that openness is a form of mirroring. Those are literal mirroring techniques. There is another one, which is summarization, which is a form of mirroring. It's when someone explains something to you, their point of view on a particular thing, you repeat back to them in summary, in your own words, what you think you heard from them. And this does two things. One is it's very validating for them. If you hear words like, yes, exactly, or yeah, you got it, then you know that you accurately reflected back what it is, mirrored back to them, what it is that they were saying. And the second thing it does is it helps them feel validated. It helps them feel like you really not just heard them, but understand them. Now, you might not actually agree with what they're saying. And by mirroring, you're not saying you agree, but you're saying you've heard them. You're saying you accept their point of view as valid. Once you've done that, you've earned some points with them, and it makes it much easier for them to hear your point of view, even if it differs. You can say, yeah, this makes sense, what you've said. I understand where you're coming from. There are a few other considerations that maybe we should discuss. There's this and this also that I think possibly would change the direction. What do you think? And now we are having a genuine discussion, not about disagreement, but about discovering a hidden truth that maybe neither one of us could have arrived at by ourselves. If you do those physical mirroring techniques and you do that summarization, you've created just the right atmosphere of working together on the problem, working together to understand each other and our points of view, and you're already well on your way to coming to some sort of alignment. Sometimes you'll run into difficult situations with stakeholders where they're asking for what seem like unrealistic or unreasonable things, or when you don't understand why they're taking the position that they are taking, and the arguments that they give you don't seem to add up to you. And it's tempting in those situations to blame them. It's tempting to say, this person is just stupid, or this person is just a jerk, or this person doesn't get it, or they're just so different from me, there's just no common ground. And I would challenge you on that. I would say most of the time, when someone seems to be acting unreasonably, there is something you don't know. There is something about their situation or about the company situation that they haven't shared and maybe can't share with you. Maybe it's temporary. Their kid is having trouble in school and they're really stressed out, or they're sick, or they just got reamed by their own boss and they're stressed out about that and they're kicking down or across. Or maybe it's broader than that. Maybe the situation that the company is facing is just difficult and everyone is stressed out. Or maybe it's even you and you are in that situation and you're reacting badly and oversensitively to what other people are doing. It might be short term, it might be long term, it might be personal, it might be strategic. But the key thing is to try to discover what it is that you don't know. To try to speculate, okay, what they're saying doesn't make sense. Let me ask some broader questions, some open-ended questions, and see if I can discover what I don't know. Ask people when they say, we really should do this, but it doesn't quite make sense to you. Why? What problem are they trying to solve? Is there something, you can even ask, is there something I don't know? Is there something going on that would help me understand this? Be curious. Ask for help in understanding. Don't accuse, but instead inquire. Instead explore. Tell me more. Help me understand. I don't really understand what is underpinning this motivation. And most people if they can, will try to be reflective and share. They will appreciate the effort that you put forward in trying to understand them. A couple of examples. My boss once asked me to write two product requirements documents at the same time. And as many of those can be quite a big effort. They're 40-page epic. They require a lot of research and validation, analysis, and so on. And I proposed that I focus on one at a time. And he said, no, I need them both by the end of this month. And I said, I'm not going to be able to do as good a job if I try to do these two things in parallel by that time. Wouldn't it make more sense to do this one, because I know we're going to start work on it pretty soon, and then the other one, because my understanding is we're not going to be working on that anytime soon. And he said, do your best, do what you can. And he refused to be any clearer about why he wanted that. I found that confusing and frustrating, and I wasn't sure what to do about it. I did my best, wasn't happy with the result. He was happy with the result, though, even though I felt that at least one of them was not completely up to snuff. I discovered later that his bonus was in part determined by having a certain number of PRDs done by a certain date by the product team, done and completed and in place. And to be honest, I wish he'd just told me that. I'd have been on the team for him to make him look good. That's an example of I wish I had known, of something I didn't know, and I didn't know how to ask at the time. Today, I would have said, how does this help us? I would have asked, instead of feeding him all my objections, I would have asked him for more clarification. And I might have even intuited, how does this help you, if I had asked that. Similarly, I once did an analysis of different opportunities for us to pursue in terms of features or new products. And I used as a rubric for which things were most important to pursue objectives that we had shared with the board fairly recently about growth and margin and other business objectives. And they added up to a fairly clear picture in my mind of what we should be working on. Some things were very leveraged in terms of those objectives, and some things were not very leveraged, and they fell to the bottom of the list. As I went and spoke to some of my fellow executives, several of them kept pointing out things that were pretty low on the list and saying, oh, but that would be so cool. Or, oh, that would create a lot of buzz. We should do that. And I would take them back to the objectives that we all had shared with the board and that we all, I felt, had agreed on, and said, but buzz is not one of our objectives. If it can help us indirectly with one of these other objectives, I'm all for it. But if it's just about buzz, I don't see why we would prioritize that. I had that conversation several times until I had the conversation with our CFO. And he shared with me that confidentially, we were going for another round of funding fairly soon, and that being in the press with something buzzworthy would help us in positioning ourselves for that round. And suddenly, when I added that additional objective of being well positioned for raising our next round, all of the chips fell into place, and the proper things that were leveraged in terms of buzz and the other objectives rose to the top, and we came quickly to alignment. So again, something I wish I had known. A lot of people ask me, how do I navigate my broader organization outside of my own product squad? How do I figure out who I should be talking to, who the real stakeholders are? And I want to say that the org chart is actually not a whole lot of help. The official org chart, the reporting org chart, is really not the same as the influence org chart. And I think it's important to make a distinction between those. Sure, you probably need to make your boss happy, but you also want to ask yourself, who are the most important, most influential people in the organization whose support, informally or formally, for my agenda, for my roadmap, for investing in my product would be critical. And you can figure that out by asking yourself, first, which departments are the ones that get the most airtime, that have the easiest time getting recs to hire new people and budget? Who does the CEO have coffee with or breakfast with within the organization. Chances are, even though they're not in your direct line of reporting, or maybe they're not the head of a particular function that you need to interface with every day, that those people are highly influential. They're what we call in the book power players. And you want those people on your side because a word from them in the ear of someone who does officially have decision rights over things that affect the success of your product could make all the difference, positively or negatively, for you to succeed. So make a list of the people you know you need to talk to because of their function, but add to that list those maybe hidden power players that you need to align with as well, and make a sustained effort to get to know those people, to connect with those people informally, and to create that stakeholder team, your extended team outside of your product squad that you'll be able to leverage for input when you need to make a decision, for alignment when you need everybody to be moving in the same direction, and for execution when it's time to make your product sing and be successful. If you feel that stakeholder management would help you succeed in your career and help your product succeed, go to Amazon and look for Aligned Stakeholder Management for Product Leaders by myself, Bruce McCarthy, and my co-author, Melissa Appel. We can't wait to see what you come up with.